Welcome to the Flower Lounge, a place for conversations with wildly creative people and a little plant-loving wisdom to help you experience life in full bloom. I'm Katie Hess, flower alchemist and founder of LOTUSWEI, and I believe in a world where we're all living at our personal edge. Welcome to this week's episode of the Flower Lounge. Very excited to have this week's guest, Rachael Pontillo. She's a best-selling author of the book Love Your Skin, Love Yourself, and the co-author of The Sauce Code. She's an AADP and IAHC board-certified international health coach, licensed esthetician, and natural skincare formulator and educator. She's the president and co-founder of the Nutritional Aesthetics Alliance, the creator of the popular skincare and healthy lifestyle blog Holistically Haute, as well as the much-loved online course Create Your Skincare. She's an avid herbalist, self-professed skincare ingredient junkie, and lifelong learner. If you're curious about her, you can do a search immediately. Her website is Rachael, and she's the RACHAEL kind of Rachael, Pontillo with 2Ls.com. Hi, Rachael. So good to have you.
Hi, Katie. So great to be here.
Yeah, usually we start out with this little exercise where you close your eyes and go back to your childhood and think of a favorite flower that you played around and what you were doing. And then think about if that flower had a personality, how would you describe it in 3 words? And then whenever you're ready, you can open your eyes and tell us about the flower, what you were thinking, and the words you would use to describe it.
Okay, so I have 2. I was really lucky to grow up with a mother who had a very green thumb, both for growing food and for growing flowers. And there was a patch of lawn in my yard that was one of my happy places. I had 2 that we're going to talk about, but one was, so we had a massive amount of 4-leaf clovers growing in my yard.
Ooh.
And where I used to like looking for them was right near our flagpole. And my mother had this beautiful circle of irises around the flagpole. And they're just beautiful, deep purple and yellow, kind of like the colors that I have on now. The audience can't see, but that's okay. I have a purple and yellow shirt on. And I remember just looking for my clovers and kind of peeking over and looking over at the irises, just knowing that they were there. And they had this very motherly presence to me. I always associate them with my mother. Very feminine energy, very luxurious, but also voluptuous energy. So to me, they really represent so many of the archetypes of woman that you might think of. There's a little bit of magic to them. Their smell is very subtle, but it's almost lemony, but also spicy it is to me. It's kind of a different smell for me. So it has kind of that witchiness, but it also is very regal with the purple. And then it's also very motherly. And those are the 3 main archetypes I like to work with when I think about female archetypes, although there are innumerable ones, but those are kind of the 3 that I like. So those are kind of the words that I would associate with irises. And then we also had a bunch of ivy, and there was lily of the valley growing in the ivy. And we used to just play in the ivy and look out for daddy long legs, and just the smell of lily of the valley. You cannot escape it. You cannot deny it. It calls to you, and you just have no choice but to go to it. So, but when you get there, it's so innocent and small and delicate, but it's powerful. So I would say beckoning, powerful, unassuming for lily of the valley.
Okay, because what we find is that typically the words you use to describe your childhood flowers would describe the different ways that you bring your gifts into the world. So if it's lily of the valley, you've got a side of you that's unassuming, powerful, and beckoning.
I'll take it.
And then the iris, well, you said so many great things: magic, voluptuous, feminine, spicy, motherly, and regal.
I'll take all that too.
That's awesome. So yeah, I mean, for the listeners who don't know you yet, tell us a little bit about your backstory.
So skincare is kind of the center of everything that I do now, everything that I do. I have a lot of things as you said in your intro, there's a lot that I do, and I express different things through skincare. It all kind of radiates out, but skincare is kind of that center of the compass for me. And the reason for that is because I got into that out of necessity. I struggled with acne ever since I was a child. I started getting breakouts around 10 years old, small ones, but annoying at 10 years old. That's not really what you want to be thinking about.
Right.
And it got worse through teenage years, as one might expect, for many kids do deal with acne. So that was nothing.
It just sucks, right?
I know. Doesn't it? First of all,
terrible.
like, little time out here. Doesn't it seem that during the times of our lives when we are having the most hormonal turmoil is when our skin is like, hi, I'm right here. Pay attention to me. And it's difficult because if you're not in your teenage years or in your years of or time of pregnancy or nursing or during menopause, like during those 3 times, it is a little bit more difficult to get those hormones back under control and into balance, just because there's so much activity, there's so much flux, there's so much transition.
Sure.
If you're in between one of those times, though, there's a lot you can do. With food and even with stress management and herbs and mindset to keep those hormone levels more at a level and normal place. But when you're in those crazy flux years, you can try and you absolutely can kind of take the edges off, the top and the bottoms off of those roller coasters and make it a little bit more even. But it is very difficult if you have something presenting like acne during those years, because it is.
How did that impact you?
Oh my God, it impacted me in so many ways. It was the focus of my life, which it shouldn't have been. When you're a teenager, you're supposed to be doing other things. You're supposed to be figuring out who you are, and figuring out what's important to you and who are your people, who are you, and who are you meant to be. But when you're looking in the mirror and seeing these lesions looking back at you and picking at them, and then you're seeing scabs looking back at you, and you're seeing other people looking your direction and automatically thinking they're staring at you and thinking you're ugly and thinking there's something wrong with you, which that was the story I told myself. I don't know if it was true. It's funny because when I was at a class reunion, I think it was like 28, because we did a 10-year reunion. We could not get our act together to do a 20-year reunion. But when I was 28, we did a 10-year reunion, and I was like, I had this whole idea in my head that I was going to show up and be like, look, my skin is better now. Look at me. Nobody noticed. Nobody cared. And honestly, I mean, when you're a teenager, you're worried about something about yourself. I don't know any teenagers that is, even the cool ones, they're self-conscious about something.
Exactly.
And I wish more teenagers understood that. And that's something that I do have a young teenager. I have a 13-year-old, and that's something that I really am trying to teach her. And I also have a 10-year-old, and I'm trying to prepare her for that too, that, whatever people are putting at you, it's because of something that they're trying to work out for themselves, and they just don't know how to do that yet. They don't know how to process those feelings yet.
And so how did that experience of being a teenager propel you into what you're doing right now?
I started to do makeup at a fairly young age to cover the acne, because we tried everything that was available to us. I read the teen magazines and watched the TV commercials. My friends and I would go to the drugstore, and those were the products that we knew to use. And then when I was a little bit older and I was old enough to work, I got jobs at department stores, because I figured, well, these are more expensive, so they must be better. So I would use those products. And the skincare products that they sold, they weren't really helping, because I learned later they're really the same as what you get in the drugstore. It's just different label and different packaging and different price. But, I did get to have a wider variety of makeup colors. Back then, the drugstore makeup, I don't know what it's like now because I don't buy it, but I have a lot of yellow in my skin, and I could never find foundation that wasn't too orange or too pink. And I felt like I looked like a clown because, so when I got to the department store and there was so much more range for skin tones, which Yeah, I have to just throw in a little aside. There's not enough variety for all skin tones, and that is starting to change slowly, but you know, we have to say that. But there was more variety for me, and I was able to match my skin, and I was able to cover the acne, and yeah, it was thick. I remember learning to use green pigment to counteract the redness and then cover it with foundation and then put concealer on top of that and then pack it in with powder.
That's a lot of work.
It was a lot of work. I probably dedicated 45 minutes to an hour to my face just to feel confident leaving my house.
And how did that change?
That continued really all through my 20s and even into my early 30s. My skin did not resolve until I was in my early 30s, and I had already gone to aesthetic school to learn different ways to treat the skin, learn more about acne itself, learn more about the skin itself. And that I'm really grateful I did that, because it really was a huge kind of anchor in what I do now, that education and the training and working with clients, that was huge for me. And I also was really fortunate to study under an Ayurvedic doctor who taught about some of the internal causes and things you can do internally with the diet and with the mindset, in addition to herbs and anti-inflammatory ingredients. And he also taught about the doshas, which was really my first introduction into the concept of bioindividuality, meaning that every person has their own unique constitution that needs to be revisited, and your regimen needs to be adjusted as the seasons change, as you age, and all of that. And my other teacher as well, we used a very natural skincare line that was really full of a lot of herbs. And I was really grateful for that background. And I already knew that I wanted to get into the holistic side of aesthetics, whatever I was going to do with it. But so I was able to keep the acne under control with the products. But if I ran out of a product, it would come back. So I hadn't addressed the issue. And I didn't really know how to address the issue, but I hadn't yet made the connection that what you eat does affect what you see on the surface of your skin.
Right.
And now it's like, well, duh. But back then, and to people who are getting, into this as more of a newer way to think about the skin and think about the health, skin cells are built on the inside. They're not built on the outside. By the time we see them on the outside, they're already dead and ready to fall off. What we see on the outside, that's kind of our armor, and then it just sheds when it's done. It's like snake skin. It's there as long as it needs to be there, and then when the new cells underneath are ready, it goes. And that's how it goes. The skin cells just continue to rise. They are round when they form, and then they flatten. By the time they come up, they're like scales. They layer on top of each other, and then they just fall off when you don't need them anymore. But those cells are formed inside. And they are formed with the nutrients that you put into your body.
Right.
So I always like to say, if you're building a house, you're not going to build it with cardboard and duct tape. You're going to build it with bricks and mortar, with some nice wood and nails. The better quality materials you use to build a foundation, or not a foundation, a structure, and the stronger foundation you dig, the longer your house is going to last, the stronger it's going to stand. The same thing goes for your health and for your skin.
Right.
So I changed my diet radically. It was kind of a combination of trying to lose baby weight. After my second daughter was born, I gained a significant amount of weight. I was up over 200 pounds. And I tried everything again that I knew to try. I tried the different fad diets. I tried the points. I tried even the diet pills, which I'm not proud of, but I did. I was kind of desperate.
Right.
And I kind of gave up because none of that worked. It might work for like 20 pounds, but then I'd stop and I'd gain it back. It was the roller coaster, and I just was done with it. It was exhausting.
Yeah.
So I had already started my blog because I had already fallen in love with holistic skincare, and I wanted other people to know about it. And I've always been a writer ever since school. And then when my kids were, when I was pregnant and when my older daughter was a baby, I started doing freelance writing and editing for healthcare journals and nursing journals. So I continued writing kind of all throughout. And it was just like, okay, well, I can't get a job in a spa that follows this philosophy right now because there just weren't any. So I'm going to write.
You were totally ahead of the curve.
I was one of the first people writing about it at that time. And it was important to me because I really felt people needed to know. But when I changed my diet to learn more about detoxification, I wanted to learn about detoxification to write a blog post about it. So I read a book and I read about different foods that are known to trigger the skin and elimination diets. And I hadn't tried any of it yet. This was a diet that I didn't try.
Let's dig into that a little bit.
Yeah.
So like, just tell me, like, what was your diet like before? Just
Yeah, sure.
And then what did you try that was different?
Absolutely. So my diet growing up was all home cooked. My mother cooked.
Oh, you're so lucky.
Cooked food. I know I am really lucky. But I also, she didn't allow a lot of sugar. So when I got out of my mom's house, I rebelled a bit. And I did have
a lot of sugar,
a lot of soda, and I did have canned soup. Canned soup was like my biggest like guilty pleasure, and I blame the elementary schools because they have those soup label contests where you bring in these labels so your class can win a pizza party. I blame them. I got so addicted to canned soup. I would like mix up the different brands and add noodles and
canned soup.
Oh my God. It was my thing. So I ate that. I did drink a lot of soda, and I wasn't really cooking very much because I didn't consider myself a good cook. And I married a chef, but he worked all the time. He didn't really cook. So and when I was working all the time, I just got used to eating out and eating convenience foods. And it wasn't until I had kids of my own that I started cooking and I made myself get better at it. So I grew up with that kind of home cook value, but I lost it, as a lot of kids do. So yeah, there was a lot of sugar in my system. There was a lot of gluten. I was eating a ton of pasta and pizza and just convenience foods and dairy, especially with my second pregnancy. I craved chocolate ice cream like nobody's business. And I'm like, oh, well, I want my kid to be sweet. Well, let me tell you, she's sweet, but she's also got a sweet tooth. So I will say that. But yeah, I was eating a lot of dairy. So those are three of the most common skin triggers: gluten, dairy, and sugar. And this book that I read was like, yeah, you got to cut all that. And it wasn't the only one. I had read some other ones that suggested that too, but I'm just like, no. But around that time, my father-in-law also got diagnosed with celiac disease. So gluten started to be more of a thing that was in my brain. I'm like, okay, well, if it's bad for this person, it's bad for skin, maybe I should try giving it up. So it wasn't just giving up those three things that helped. It was adding in more good stuff. And that's something that I learned later on in my health coach training program, is adding in more good stuff to crowd out the bad stuff. That's like health coaching 101.
Right.
But it works because more people don't want to focus on giving stuff up. That's not fun.
Right.
It's better to focus on adding in more good stuff. And I'll tell you, I'm doing it right now because I found myself during the summit and before the summit, I went from a launch to the summit, which was very busy and stressful. And I kind of gave into some sugar cravings. So now I'm kind of breaking myself out of that. And it's about adding in more good stuff so that your body wants that instead of the bad stuff. So I did more of that. I added in green smoothies. I added in warm water with lemon. I added in more whole grains, more vegetables to every meal. I added an extra serving of vegetables to every meal. And very quickly, my skin cleared up. Within a month, my skin cleared up to the point where if I ran out of a product, the acne didn't come back. And at first I'm like, but I'm getting older. Maybe my skin's just done with this. So I did an experiment and I started eating some garbage again and my skin broke out again. So I'm like, okay, this was food.
Clear correlation. And then what happened with your weight?
I lost 80 pounds over 18 months and kept it off.
Wow.
And felt amazing. I didn't feel tired. I didn't feel like dizzy or anything. Like if people lose weight quickly, the first 50 pounds came off in a year, and I went for a physical, and my doctor actually suggested that I go talk to like a psychiatrist. She thought I had an eating disorder.
Oh, geez.
She didn't even believe that changing your diet could make you lose weight that quickly. And wow. I didn't feel deprived. I felt amazing. I probably walked in there looking all crazy, like, hello, the world is wonderful. I am thin now and I'm happy and I have energy. She's probably like, okay, this woman's crazy. But
So is that when you decided to go into holistic health coaching practice?
It is. So once I saw what happened for me, I wanted to start writing more about it on my blog because, again, I wanted people to know about this. I wanted to shout it from the rooftops because so many women struggle with their skin. So many women struggle, and so many girls struggle.
Yeah.
And really, my main mission in life is to support girls and support women. That's really what it all comes down to. And skincare is that's the entry way.
Right.
So I started writing about it, but then I paused because I didn't really understand why that was happening, other than the idea of what you put in shows up on your skin. Sure, we get that. But I read one book, maybe like 2 books. And there's so many experts that claim to be experts that are not experts. And in the wellness industry in general, there are a lot of very inexperienced people making very big statements that really don't have any substance behind them. So I started looking for nutrition programs. I didn't really know about health coaching yet. And everywhere I looked on the internet for nutrition certification, Institute for Integrative Nutrition came up. I think they like own the internet. Like talk about, I didn't know anything about internet advertising or online marketing back then. I knew nothing. I was like, oh my God, this must be really amazing. So I did the Institute for Integrative Nutrition's program, and that's a year-long program. And then they had 6-month kind of graduate programs after that I also did. But in that program, you have to work with clients to get your certification. You have to pass exams, but you also have to work with a certain amount of clients, and you have to go through health coaching yourself.
Right. That's wonderful.
And I was really lucky because, during when I did the program, we got to work with a health coach one-on-one. Now I think it's a group experience, but I had a one-on-one health coach, and working with that health coach was really, it continued that transformation for me. And it helped me really see that connection of why these changes happened when I made those changes, and what else could I do to keep those results going and maintain what I had already started. And then I learned even more about bioindividuality, learned even more about different ways of eating that people who are known to have really high qualities of life and long life, this is how they eat. And this is, it all really came down to eat real food, eat lots of vegetables, and watch the quality of your food. If you eat meat, really be very picky about where that meat comes from and how those animals are treated. And it just really cemented that understanding for me. And working with clients and seeing similar results that I had duplicated with those clients is what really made the skin and health connection for me so strong that I was like, okay, this is it. Yeah, like the topical stuff is really fun. And it can help people get instant results or very quick results. And it can also help people feel like they're doing something that they can see. But it's not sustainable if you're not also working from the inside out. So my initial blog, the first iteration of the Holistically Hope blog, was Inside Out, Achieving Beauty, Health, and Vitality from the Inside Out and Outside In. That's also the subtitle of my first book. And it really, the whole inside out and outside in approach, you need both. And that also really, I think it filled a need in the market, because at the time, at kind of the earlier days of internet health coaches, we did have a lot of people writing about skin from within, healthy skin from within, glowing skin from within.
Sure.
We still see it a lot. And I will say that it is primarily what you put in that you have to make, that's where you have to make the change. But it's not just your physical body, it's also your emotional and spiritual minds that you have to also make that change in.
Yeah, that's one of the things that I really like about your work. And I noticed that when you hosted the Herbal Skincare Summit, that you really took a very avant-garde approach in terms of what is important with skin, because what you're talking about, skin being formed from the inside out and food being a major factor in skin. But you're going like a whole other step further, and you're talking about emotions and stress and mental and inner landscape and how you feel.
Yeah.
Can you talk more about that?
Absolutely. So something that, you'll see it if you go to my bio on my website, but I don't It's not a huge part of my business and my brand that I lead with, because I'll be honest, it can trigger some people, but I am a minister. And I became a minister of metaphysical science shortly after I got my health coach certification, and was working with clients and was seeing how people got really amazing advice. I gave them great advice, but no, they got amazing results.
Yeah.
From my amazing advice. And it was phenomenal. And the thing with health coaching and coaching in general, a coaching relationship is not meant to be a long-term relationship.
Okay.
Coaching is meant to give people the tools and skills they need so that they can do these things for themselves.
Right.
They're honoring the person as a whole and complete human who has everything they need. They just need some guidance. They just need a little bit of accountability. They just kind of need someone to hold their hand while they're walking their own path.
Mm-hmm.
It's not like therapy where it is a very long-term relationship where you're fixing something that's broken. It's a very different model. But what I did notice is that sometimes people were falling off the wagon, and it happens, and they wouldn't get back on the wagon. And that was interesting to me, because I certainly have fallen off wagons before, but I've gotten back on.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm wondering, okay, well, why?
Mm-hmm.
Why are people not able to do this for themselves?
Mm-hmm.
When they intellectually know what they're supposed to do.
Mm-hmm.
I cannot tell you how many women I talk to where I say, well, you know what to do. You know you're supposed to drink more water. You're supposed to do this. You're supposed to use this, but you're not doing it. Why? And of course, I'm too busy. I'm too tired. But everybody's busy. Everybody gets tired.
Mm-hmm.
Money. Everybody has money concerns. I don't care how much money you have. You always want more. You always find ways to need more. It was a self-worth thing.
Mm-hmm.
They didn't quite feel that they deserved the effort that it takes ongoing to maintain those results. And that was really interesting to me. So I wanted to study that further. And I think that I looked at a couple of different things. I did not consider therapy, because the therapy model for me is more of a Western medical model that is still more symptom focused. And, it's great for people who are working in that model. I'm not saying anything bad about it, but it wasn't in alignment with how I was already practicing, because I come from the approach that we are perfect. We are born perfect. And I think during the Herbal Skincare Summit, I did use the analogy of a perfect, beautiful red rose, that the same force that created that incredible, perfect, velvety red petal on that red rose is the same force that created us. So if that's perfect and beautiful, then so are we. And if that rose deserves to be tended to and cared for and honored for its beauty, then so do we. But we have to feel that we deserve it. And for me, that was a spiritual disconnect. It wasn't a mental or an emotional thing from a psychological perspective. It was not a brain thing. It went deeper than that. So that's why I chose to pursue more education on the spiritual path and earn a master's degree in that area.
And in the Herbal Skincare Summit, I know you graciously invited me to be a guest, which was super fun. And you asked me to speak about something that was just like way out there in terms of what I would not have imagined would connect back to skincare. Can you talk a little bit about some of the other guests that you invited that were, maybe surprising to participants in terms of how they related to skincare?
Absolutely. So Maya Toll, I will bring up, because Maya's somebody that she's one of my teachers, one of my herbal teachers. I've studied with her before and I've heard her speak, and I know her personally because she used to live in the Philadelphia area and I'm in the Philadelphia area, and we met in person at a goddess circle shortly before she moved. And her store, the Herbiary, she has one in Reading Terminal Market. She used to have one in Chestnut Hill, which is really close to where I live. She doesn't have that one anymore, but I knew of her and I knew her from that. So we connected personally, and then I knew I wanted to learn more from her. So when I asked her initially, she said no. And I was like, what? girl, you're my friend, you're my teacher. You're saying no. And she's like, look, I really want to collaborate with you. We will find something to do. But she's like, but skincare is not my thing.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, oh my God, no, I need Maya. So, and then I thought to myself, why do I want Maya? I don't want her to teach about skincare. That's not why I want her here. I wanted Maya to teach about the importance of using your intuition to figure out what plants are best for you. Stepping away from the Google and putting yourself in front of the plant and learning to be open and learn how plants communicate. And when I came back to her, I said, I actually want you to talk about this. She's like, oh, yeah, I could talk about that. So her class in the Herbal Skincare Summit was all about that. And she also very generously shared her 8-part herbal formula and how she formulates herbal preparations like infusions and tinctures. And a lot of my Create Your Skincare students, after watching that, they emailed me. They're like, I'm going to use that for my blends. Oh my God, for skincare. So hugely valuable. And yeah, so her class was definitely one of the more engaging ones that we had. People were emailing us about it, and it was just phenomenal. And she's just this incredibly wise, powerful woman, just in her own skin and in her own spirit. And her, when she speaks, it's just her higher self is just coming through her. So she was amazing. And then I really had a pleasant surprise. So Carrie McClure is not a skincare professional. And she actually came to me and asked if she could be part of the summit. And I was like, I wonder how this fits. Because, when you get an intuition and you're like, that doesn't really make sense. And Maya Toll actually taught this, that if there's a plant that wants to come into your blend that really on paper has no business being in there, but it's persistent, like you keep seeing pictures of it, or maybe you catch a whiff of it, it wants to be in there, and your job really is to trust that and find a way to use it. Mm-hmm. So I was thinking, okay, well, so Carrie's a yoga teacher. She is a nutritionist. She does a lot with meditation. I'm like, okay, herbal tea meditation for glowing skin. I am like, can we make it about skin? Can we find it? And she's like, yeah, of course. And you and I have talked about the benefits of meditation and skin, and you generously shared a meditation with our viewers as well. And, I think the effect that meditation has on the skin is so similar to the effect that flower essences have on the skin. It affects the energetic look of us, mm-hmm. which then affects the physical. Right. So Carrie's talk was very much about finding moments in the day, the power of the pause, mindfulness. And I was a little concerned because it was still not all that focused on skin. It was great, but it was still like, I'm wondering, I was a little worried that maybe it was things that people might have heard before. Mm-hmm. She had this quote that aging is a function of, is a human function, but older is a choice. People were making their own memes out of that and sharing them on social media. I'm like, what? And they were emailing in, and that was the quote that really stirred them. And when we think about aging and we think about aging's relation to skincare, I mean, my goodness, how many women go to the spa or buy expensive products or even go to dermatologists or have cosmetic procedures because of this fear of aging? Mm-hmm. And how aging is going to make us look. Oh my God. Mm-hmm. So it was another extremely powerful moment that was very unexpected for me, but I was just so grateful that we found a way to include Carrie's talk, because it was clearly a message that needed to come out at this time. And it was just so divinely guided, just like all of the messages were. I mean, my God, I probably listened to all of those talks 5 or 6 times at least, because I did my own editing, and it was just, I also wrote the Herbal Skincare Companion ebook, the Herbal Skincare Summit Companion ebook, which we actually just released on Monday to everyone who purchased the kit. And that kit, by the way, is always available. So
yeah. So if people are listening,
want to purchase that,
Yeah, if people are listening and they didn't get a chance, they didn't hear about the Herbal Skincare Summit and they want, either access to the talks or the information, what's the best way to get that?
So I think you have a link. If you want to put that link, I don't know if you do show notes or whatever, but you can absolutely provide that link. It's the same link that you used during the summit.
Okay.
And they can purchase the kit. It's $147 and they get the videos, they get all the audio files, they get access to all of the speaker bonuses in one place. And I decided on a whim during one of my Facebook Live wrap-up sessions, I'm like, I'm going to write a companion ebook. And my assistant messaged me immediately while I was talking. She's like, what are we doing now? Say what now? And so I wrote a 45-page companion ebook that has brand new recipes that I compiled that were inspired by the favorites that our teachers all named. You know how I asked you what your favorite herb was, your favorite flower? And also any of the ones that were named. So for your talk, I made a flower essence blend that was kind of inspired by some of the places that you mentioned and some of the plants. Oh my gosh.
Tell me more. Can you give us a little teaser?
Let me see. One was, now I don't have it in front of me.
Rough sketch.
Okay. So inspired by your talk for the Herbal Skincare Summit, I created a blend called Ground, Protect, and Release, which was inspired by some of the places and plants that you mentioned during your talk. And some of the plants in that, we have Icelandic poppy, because you talked about Iceland. And we have white yarrow, because that was that plant that the bear and the snakes led you to in that incredible story. That really resonated with so many people. They were so inspired by how you just followed nature like that. Oh my gosh. And then 1 part white fireweed, because you said that Americans all need fireweed in their lives to protect against kind of all of this technology and air travel and all that. So I think that was the one you said about protection, or was that the release? No, that was the release from the past emotions.
Yeah.
Got it. But anyway, there's a description of why I chose each one of those. So I just put a little blend for that, just 1 part of each for the blend that was inspired by your talk. And there's a little recipe for each of our teachers. And then at the end, I did kind of a lightning round of functional recipes with herbs that were inspired.
So is that like meant to be drank as a tea, or is it like put on your face, or when you put the recipes together, was it like based on skincare, or how?
Some of them were. So some of the recipes are meant to be taken as a tea. And I tell you, there's one for a glycerin that you can use either as an internal supplement, or you can use it as an ingredient in a topical blend.
Very cool.
There's also some topical oil blends that you can make. There's a couple of salves in there. So I tried to vary the delivery of the herbs with a lot of different ways so that you can use them inside or out. And each recipe, I tell you how to use them, what's the best way to use them.
So much fun. So you're really marrying skincare with food, lifestyle, and herbalism now, and flower essence.
And I think really herbalism connects it all, because herbalism, the plants are they're really our rope that kind of tethers us to the earth and to the sky, to the spirit. That's, just like we are. We exist between those planes, just like the plants, and all of those energies that we get from kind of the more spiritual realms, as well as from our deep grounded earth wisdom, and really, connecting the high masculine with the high feminine and the divinity and that synergy. That's what herbs do. So, I talk about skincare, the mind, the spirit, the food, and the topical as all needing to be connected. Herbs are the perfect way to do all of that in a very simple way. And we talked about adding in the good stuff instead of focusing on taking out bad stuff. This is such an easy way and a fun way and a transformative way, because the more you work with a plant, it teaches you, you learn, you become, and then it guides you to what the next plant is. So
tell me a little more about your personal experience in that. What's an herb that you love or that you've worked with that has guided you?
Oh my goodness. So my favorite herb or plant, flower really, that I listed in the Herbal Skincare Summit, and a lot of other speakers did too, was rose. And it sounds kind of obvious, because who doesn't love roses? I mean, I don't know too many people who don't love roses. But for me, I have gotten just so much wisdom from roses, and my understanding of roses has changed a lot. And rose has a lot of meaning in different religions as well. I mean, obviously, in Christianity, you have the idea of the rose windows in the cathedrals and associated with both Mother Mary and Mary Magdalene. Then, with the chakras, you have the heart chakra often seen as a rose opening, even though the chakra itself is green, but the heart chakra is associated with the rose. And then self-love, if we're talking about, kind of wellness and new age kind of stuff, the whole self-love idea associated with rose and the color pink and rose quartz. Mm-hmm. So there's just so many lessons. And I did a plant meditation at an herb conference where we were in a tent. It was a bunch of women and sat around some roses, and they weren't in bloom. It was in the fall. So it was a fairly barren looking little rose plant with a bunch of thorns. And we were asked to draw it. And then we were asked, the leader of the workshop played drums, and we were asked to close our eyes and just commune with the plant and be open to receive the lessons and write it down. So I looked at what I wrote down, and, it was messages about it's okay to kind of hold people back or hold things back to protect the softness if you have to, but that sometimes the softness can just be, but just like this particular road was all thorns and there wasn't any visible softness, that we have that balance. Sometimes we show our vulnerability and we show our beauty and we share it, and other times we kind of keep it back, we hold it back. So that was one lesson that I got. And then I don't know about you, I know you travel a lot, but when I travel in the air, I don't like air travel, but I tend to get a lot of like serious spiritual like guidance, mostly because I'm meditating a lot while I'm flying because it calms me down. But I just got I started this amazing lesson from the rose that continued after I had gotten to my destination. It was when I went to Palm Springs right after the summit, that the thorns are not always meant to keep you away, but they're meant to be used as steps to get to that top, to that beautiful opening. And if we kind of turn it vertical and we use the thorns as steps and we climb them and we trust them that they're there to support us as we get to that beautiful top perfection, that was another lesson. I was just like, whoa. So it just keeps opening and it keeps unfolding and more wisdom comes. And it's just because I chose to focus on the rose.
Right.
So if we do that, and I know this is how you learn about plants to create your beautiful blends as well, as you just spend time with them and you commune with them and you let them teach you. And that is just such an incredibly powerful way that plants really show us and give us guidance. And if we can just be open to that, if more people could be open to that, I know you use that 3% example, that if just 3% more of the world would take flower essences or just work with flowers, imagine the power and what change that would make, especially in times like this. I just think in times like this, where so many of us are feeling so powerful, looking to something that is provided for us like flowers and herbs and already has so much beauty, and we're trying to create more beauty when there's a crappy situation, we're trying to make it more beautiful. We're trying to teach people to value life and value creation and value beauty instead of wanting to destroy it. Oh, there's just so much wisdom there that we can learn just by choosing one plant and starting with that. But even today, that when you asked me about my childhood plants, I hadn't thought about them in a really long time. Mm-hmm. And that just lifted my mood right up. So, it really is amazing how you might not think that something like clover, ivy, lily of the valley, and iris would go together. But if I were to make a blend out of that, that's my childhood in a bottle right there. That's the happiest moments of my childhood in a bottle. And we always say, what if we could bottle memories? Well, we can. And this is a way that we can do that. And one of the ways that plants teach us most powerfully is through memories.
I love that. And yeah, so shifting gears a little bit into women in business. So just, I'm always fascinated by people who lead lives that are different than what we're used to. And you've created a business around natural skincare, food, diet, and herbs now. Can you any wisdom you have to share about running a business your way and not how others do it?
Yeah. So I'm going to bring it back to the Herbal Skincare Summit again, because this is one of the biggest takeaways that I got from it. And this is from Donna Maria, who is one of my business mentors. She and I we've been working together probably 10 years. She's been a mentor to me. And this was also a really powerful message that was received. And I find myself repeating it to everybody on my team and in my house. And that is, you are the queen of your own business and you can do what you want. And that doesn't mean you get to be a tyrant, but it does mean that you don't have to ask advice to everyone and every group and every mastermind and every this and every that. You do have the answers. You do know what is best for your business. And I'm also a mother, as I mentioned. And I think that in many ways, businesses are like children because we grow them. And sometimes we have to shift our approach to guide them to their next level of growth.
Right.
There are so many similarities to being a business owner and being a parent. And when you're both, it really, that connection is so clear. But mothers as well. I think so many mothers don't feel like they know what's best for their children. So they back off, or they trust someone else, or they transfer it over to some expert. And no, I don't believe that God or the universe or whatever you believe gave women the ability to grow life and birth life did that because we didn't know what we were doing. Life is so precious. I think the plan that said, hey, women, you're doing this. I think they knew what they were doing, whoever it was. And I feel the same for entrepreneurs. And I see so many times entrepreneurs when they're launching a new offering or authors who are writing a new book, they're like, oh, I'm about to give birth if they're about to put it out into the world. And there's so many parallels, but you are the queen of your business. And if you're a parent, you know what's best for your children. You already know. I coach a lot of women who are moms, and feeling and trusting that you do know the right things to do. You do already have those answers. It's just sometimes hard to find them when there's all this distraction on social media, especially. Regular media, sure, but social media is the most distracting thing on the planet, especially these days. And it does distract us from our own intuition and from our own power that we inherently have, that we already know these answers. You don't have to Google every little thing. You don't have to ask an expert for validation on every little thing. So for me, I have grown my businesses through intuition. Yes, I've asked for help along the way. Yes, I have hired business strategists and branding coaches and people who can help me kind of filter some of my thoughts, because I get a lot of ideas, and sometimes it does help to brainstorm with somebody who also has, this, the success of my business at hand.
Sure.
It helps to brainstorm and prioritize and hash it through, but I'm never asking permission from a coach or a strategist, like, am I allowed to do this? Can I do this? Or should I do this right now? That's not what it's about. It's about kind of filtering and prioritizing, but the goods are already there. So my life has really formed my business. As I said, it started out of necessity, and then the weight loss thing happened. But I feel like that was part of that necessity. I had to go through all that to get to where I am now. If I didn't have that story, I wouldn't be doing this. We wouldn't be here right now. I don't know what I would be doing, but it would not be this.
Yeah. And you're the first person to do an herbal skincare summit. And so when you have these ideas, do you usually take time, like in the morning, or, you're a busy mom. When do you carve out time? How do you let yourself have these aha moments and explore enough outside the box to say something like, oh, I think I want to have an herbal skincare summit?
Usually these ideas come out when I'm talking to other people, and my assistant will tell you I tend to do monologues. Like when we start talking about something, if we're planning what's going on for the next quarter,
Mm-hmm.
I just start walking around. I walk back and forth, I pace, and I just talk.
Mm-hmm.
And during that, like, I don't even know what comes through me half the time.
Mm-hmm.
It just comes through me, and she listens and takes notes and then tells me what I said afterwards, because I don't remember. But the summit was a result of one of those discussions. I'm thinking it was shortly after I got back from the most recent herb conference I went to. I think you and I talked fairly shortly after that too. And I was all like vibed up on the plants, and I'm just like, love flowers and plants. And
Was
oh
that
my
Rosemary's
God.
conference? That was Rosemary
Yeah,
Gladstar's
Rosemary
conference.
was there. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
That was when I met Rosemary Gladstar for the first time. And I got to hug her, and it was like amazing. Yeah. But it was, I felt like I want to help people feel this way at home.
Mm-hmm.
And I want them to have an experience that they can repeat when they need to, which is the beauty of the digital product like a summit, is that you can watch it again anytime you need to, or listen to it again anytime you need to. And that's another reason why I wanted to do the wrap-up sessions on Facebook, because those videos are there anytime people want to watch them on the Rachael Pontillo Facebook page.
Mm-hmm.
And I wanted people to be able to tap into that at any time. So I do get inspired when I talk to people on my team, and we're just brainstorming together, or we're making plans, or we're doing, oh, what if this, what if that? But I also tend to get my visits from my muse very late at night.
Mm.
I have gotten woken up many times in the middle of the night and have just been given words.
Mm-hmm.
My first book, the first 5,000 words of that came at 3 o'clock in the morning. I was like woken up.
Mm-hmm.
I came downstairs, got my iPad, and I didn't even have a keyboard for the iPad yet. I used like 2 fingers, and I typed out 5,000 words.
Wow, that's amazing.
Went back to bed, got up the next day, and I looked at it, because, when you're half asleep and you write something down, or if you keep a dream journal, you can't always make out what you wrote. Sometimes it's not all that coherent. No, this was crystal clear.
Mm.
And I'm like, oh my God, this is a book. This is the beginning of a book. So that's typically how I work. I really, when the muse visits, I don't tell her, no, I'm tired. I
Mm-hmm.
follow her.
Mm-hmm.
And I just make myself open to receive that. And if there's an idea that feels really powerful, but then dissipates super quickly, or if I write it down, because I do write everything down, because not everything is meant to be implemented immediately. If I look at an idea over and over again and I don't have that same initial sense of excitement, that's when I know, okay, let's maybe revisit that next quarter, or maybe even next year.
Mm-hmm.
But if there's an idea that I've written down that won't get out of my head,
Mm-hmm.
and it doesn't, even if it doesn't make sense to do it, like, honestly, the timing of the Herbal Skincare Summit didn't make sense. It was right after the holidays. It was challenging to do all the recordings during holiday season, but I knew it had to be done. We even said, should we put it off a month? And Spirit just kept saying, no, it's happening now.
Mm-hmm.
This is it. It's happening now.
You make a lot of space and a lot of time to listen, and you sort of use a gauge of excitement level. And so you write everything down, and then you revisit, and you use that like juice, like how much juice is involved to whether you keep it going and execute or let it go till later.
Yeah. And honestly, I had wanted to do a summit for a while, but I didn't, because the exact subject matter and format hadn't come to me yet. And I don't want to put out just more content for the sake of putting content out there. There's so much noise on the internet. And I really wanted to be of service. I really wanted what I put out there to be of value to people that they would actually participate and show up for.
Mm-hmm.
Not to say anything negative about any of the bigger summits out there, but I do feel like many of them are a lot of the same people talking about a lot of the same things.
Well, from what I heard, people loved your summit. And I wondered if in closing you could offer some kind of favorite do-it-yourself recipe. It could be something that people could use at home to put on their face, like some kind of nurturing thing, or say like a tea, any kind of favorite recipe that comes to mind that you want to share with the listeners.
So I still have my ebook open, and I am going to share with you one of my favorite ones that is just all about roses, because again, the roses are back in my head.
Yep.
And I created this one recipe.
Yeah, roses have been such a huge theme this month. We created a new formulation called Fierce Compassion. And rose is on the outside and inside. And yeah, I mean, rose is something that's like been around forever. Who doesn't love roses? But it just seems to be...
It's always relevant.
Yeah, and more so now,
They
I think.
are always relevant. And, you know, some of the ascended masters, like I mentioned, Mary Magdalene and Mother Mary before, who are associated with roses, have started to come back into kind of mainstream consciousness lately too, and a lot of the books that are being published. And if you go to some of the Mind, Body, Spirit conferences, the speakers are kind of speaking from them, and it's really powerful. So I think that roses is really becoming one of our strong allies of this time. So I have this recipe. It's really simple. Everything roses. It's a nourishing oil.
Love it.
And we're using some different forms of roses. And this is an oil that you can use on your skin. You can use it on the face. You can use it safely in the eye area. If you're not putting essential oils, I don't recommend putting essential oils in the eye area. So if you are, I have the option to add some essential oil or a rose CO2 extract. If you're doing that, don't use it as like an eye serum, but you can use it on the rest of the face or use it on the body.
Okay.
So I kept these. So when I teach my online course, we calculate all of our ingredients in percentages and gram weights and stuff like that. We're very precise. But for this ebook, and for when I'm talking just to people who I want to get started with recipes, I just keep it simple. So we're just doing Simpler's method. 1 part jojoba oil that has been infused with equal parts of rose petals and rose hips. So we're getting the seed, and you know that, as Susan said, we're getting that reproductive energy from the rose hips, from that seed pod, but then we're also getting that manifestation, that opening from the petals. So I like to do a 6-week solar infusion personally, but I know that other people want to have their infusion a little bit faster. So if you use something like the Magical Butter Machine, or if you use a crock pot, or if you want to have it be a faster experience and just put a whole ton of prayer and good vibes into it, you know, intention really is the key when you're making any infusion. And then 1 part of rosehip seed oil, 1 part rosehip fruit oil. Now there's a difference. Rosehip seed oil is typically just pressed from only the seeds, but the rosehip fruit oil is pressed from the entire seed pod. So you do get some of that pulp in there. And oftentimes the color of that rosehip fruit oil is just so incredibly vibrant.
Gorgeous.
And the rosehip seed oil is beautiful. It's usually like a golden kind of orange color, but rosehip fruit oil is red.
Wow, beautiful.
And it does also have a slightly different antioxidant profile than the rosehip seed oil does. And then vitamin E oil, and I always recommend that you follow the manufacturer's instructions for how much of that to add, and that's an important one, because even though jojoba oil does add a bit of stability to the blend, because you are having more than half of the blend as more fragile oils, the rosehip seed and the rosehip fruit are a lot less saturated than the jojoba, and they're very fragile. So the vitamin E really helps to keep them fresh and prevent them from going rancid. And then the optional part is if you want to add up to 0.5% of your Bulgarian rose essential oil or a rose CO2 extract.
Lovely.
Yeah, so we're getting a lot of different manifestations of rose, different preparations, different parts of the plant, and we're just blending it together in this absolutely stunning blend.
Yummy! Then you could put some rose flower essence in there too.
Yes.
What a lovely recipe.
Lather yourself with it.
Oh my God, I love that. It's so beautiful. And for anyone who wasn't clear, if you haven't done an oil infusion, so the first part of the recipe that Rachael was talking about, it's as simple as putting jojoba oil into a jar. And you were saying 50-50 equal parts of rose hips and rose petals.
Correct.
And
make sure they're dry.
Dry, right. And you soak them in the sunlight for 6 weeks, but you can also do like a crock pot method to kind of speed it up. That is so beautiful. I love that recipe. Thank you. Yeah. So is there anything else that you want to share with listeners? Anything else that you find yourself teaching or talking about lately? Any last note that you want to, any last little bite of wisdom that you want to leave us with?
I guess I want to just expand a little bit about what we were saying about intuition and kind of being the queen, whether you're being the queen of your business or being the queen of your house, being the queen of yourself. I really want everyone to know that you don't need permission to go for things in life that you truly desire. You don't have to wait for somebody to wave a magic wand over you or bestow upon you, a permission, really, a blessing or anything like that. Nobody has the right to do that for you. You have that within yourself. And I just truly hope that everyone who's listening just digs within and finds that inner wisdom and is confident with that inner wisdom. Oftentimes we get sparks of wisdom or intuition or conscience, and we doubt it because we don't trust it. We don't trust that it's real. We don't trust that we know it, that we're smart enough, that we're connected enough. So then we go and ask someone else for advice or someone else for validation, or we look it up on the internet. No. Oftentimes, what you know from your highest self and from your deepest self is much more accurate for you than any advice that you're going to get from any friend or any online guru or anything like that. So I really want to encourage you to, if there's something you want to do, you have permission, as long as it is for your greatest good and for the greatest good of all. Obviously, this is not licensed to just go out and do whatever you want. Obviously, if it affects someone else, you have to take that person into consideration. But if this is something for your life, for yourself, for your life, that is only for your own empowerment or your own self-improvement or your own betterment, like if it's a bucket list thing for you, go for it. You have permission. You're allowed, and you know what to do.
I love that. Let's end on that note. You know what to do. We all know what to do. Thank you so much for being with us, Rachael. I love your wisdom. If you are looking for the ebook, the Herbal Skincare Summit recipes, and any of the other juicy topics that Rachael has been talking about, her website is at Rachael Pontillo, and that's RachaelPontillo.com. Thank you for being with us at the Flower Lounge. Thank you so much, Rachael.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much for listening to the Flower Lounge. I'm Katie Hess, and we'll be releasing a new podcast every Wednesday. If you like what you heard, or you know someone who might be touched by our conversation, share it with them. And don't forget to subscribe. To find out what your favorite flowers mean about you, take the quiz at LOTUSWEI.com.